Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 120 with my guest and friend, Grant Snider. Grant is the creator of Incidental Comics. If you go to incidentalcomics.com, you can see all his amazing artwork there. He's also an author. He recently published the picture book, What Color is Night? It's adorable. I've gotten it for nephews and nieces. It's very sweet. He also has 2 books coming out in May of this year. Another picture book called What Sound is Morning and I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf. Grant is a very talented artist, cartoonist, illustrator. And in this episode, we talk about his transition from freelance artist to published author, boundaries for freelancers, why constraints can be good for creativity, drawing as visualized empathy, and looking closer and listening to the people and world around us. And one fun note is that Grant was the artist for this very podcast artwork, the You, Me, Empathy logo. He created it. And so if you like that style, you'll love Grant's work. Give him a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Grant Draws. He's a lovely human. And I think you'll enjoy this conversation. Before we get to the episode, though, I just wanted to say that you are not alone. I know that things are weird and stressful and maybe a little anxious and panicky right now, but know that you're not alone. I'm here for you. My DMs are always open at You, Me, Empathy or at Feely Human. Practice mindfulness. Remember that you are a feely human, and being scared is okay, and being anxious is okay, but do what you can to stay safe, keep your family safe. It's going to be okay. I'm not a professional, but I do love dogs, and I once buried a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the backyard and then ate it the next day. So that's me. But know that I love you and care about you, and I'm here for you always. Make sure to follow You, Me, Empathy and Feely Human on the socials at Feely Human or at You, Me, Empathy. And please sign up for the newsletter, which will be coming out once the Feely Human Collective launches in early April. Sign up for that at feelyhuman.co. That's feelyhuman.co. Very excited about sharing the Feely Human Collective with you guys. It's going to be a safe space for us to connect heart to heart and really grow and educate each other on the wonders of empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. All 3 sort of crucial tenets to my own recovery and mental health. So check it out, feelyhuman.co. What else? Always, please make sure to leave a review and a rating in Apple Podcasts. It's a free way to help out the show. And if you haven't done it, I would really love that. And I will read your review on this very podcast because I love reading new reviews. It really boosts my self-esteem. It makes me happy. And truly, it does very much help out the show. So please leave reviews in Apple Podcasts. I'm going to read one here, actually, a new one. The title is Yes. Everything about this podcast is important. It normalizes emotions, mental illness, relationship issues, you name it. They aren't afraid to talk about it. This podcast is about as safe a place as it gets, from Aragami Girl. So thank you for that, Aragami Girl. I'm probably butchering your name, but thank you for that. Sincerely, that's a beautiful thing, and that's what it is. It's about creating safe spaces. So please leave a review if you haven't. It means the world to me. And give us a follow on socials at Feely Human, at You, Me, Empathy. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't subscribed. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all the places. Subscribe and enjoy this episode 120 on looking closer and listening with my friend Grant Snider.
La 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 la. You, me, empathy. Yeah. La la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I'm thrilled to connect with an old pal and cartoonist and teeth wrangler and new picture book author, Grant Snider. Hello, Grant.
Hi, Nan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been some time since we've connected, and the listeners should know that Grant was a guest on my first podcast called Joy Sandwich, the one I ran with my wife Jessica for 4 years, and it's been some time since we connected, so great to have you, friend.
Yeah, great to be back. I appreciate it.
Of course. Before we get into your story and stuff that you're doing in the world, we always kick off the show with an emotional check-in. How's your week been? How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling that post-holiday elation when when you get back into a normal routine and gear up for the next holiday.
I feel that as well. I don't know if I'd describe it as elation though. It's a bit of a it's almost like a little malaise, a little feeling of like I want to be back in, like, because Thanksgiving is you get some time off and then you're right back into work, and then transitioning back into Christmas holidays is sometimes a little tough.
Yeah, and it sounds like complaining, but our 1-year-old decided to wake up at 5:30 most days over Thanksgiving break. So I think my elation's mainly just getting that extra hour of sleep yesterday. And today I always want to wake up at 5 and I woke him up instead of vice versa. But I at least got some good work done and, I'm back in the swing of the week, basically.
Yikes. So are you still doing, so the listeners should know you're a wonderful artist, cartoonist, but you also, like, your day job is as an orthodontist. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, so I recently went down to 3 days a week at my day job, which has been an interesting transition, but a good one for sure. And then the other 2 days I stay at home and draw until I can't draw anymore.
That's amazing. So is the sort of reduction in time in your day job because you've been more successful as an artist?
Yeah, so basically I've you mentioned my first picture book coming out. I've been basically trying to do that for about the last half decade or so, and finally, instead of one picture book falling in my lap, I got a whole bunch all at once. And so this summer was kind of crazy. I had a bunch of deadlines, and I realized this really fun hobby that I've been doing for a long time is now pretty much a real job that I need to spend the time and energy and effort, treating it that way. Otherwise, either the work's going to suffer, or I'm going to get burnt out, or the the people's teeth I'm trying to straighten will straighten the wrong way. So it was a good time to do it, and yeah, it's been fun so far.
Well, congratulations. I know, like, you've been at it a while, and you've been at it a while in the framework of like having a day job, but also like making a lot of art on the side. So before, was it just, you were making art, but you weren't being paid for it? Is that sort of like the difference? Now you're sort of being paid to create stuff?
No, I mean, there's always been, I've always, done it in various places for, for getting paid. Not with that not necessarily being the main motive, but I've done a weekly web comic called Incidental Comics since about 2009. So it's celebrated its 10-year anniversary, although nobody knew that but me this year.
Well, amazing. That's amazing. And the listener should go to incidentalcomics.com. It's lovely.
Yeah, and it's been fun. And I basically do one per week, and it's appeared in various publications from starting out like my local newspaper, the Kansas City Star, when I was in dental school, to occasionally the New York Times Book Review, which has become more of a regular thing over the years. But basically, wherever I can, whoever I can trick into paying me to draw a comic, I'll figure it out. And it's been fun to see that grow. The book stuff has been the new thing that is a lot more time consuming in some ways, because I don't have that routine I've been doing for a decade. I have to learn new ways of working, new ways of writing and telling a story, and so that's why it takes more time, and that's why it's been helpful to have the extra time to do it.
Right, and that makes sense. How has that transition been, sort of emotionally, mentally? Have you sort of hit any hurdles, obstacles along the way?
Yeah, I think the tendency for any life change, whether it's a change in schedule or move to a new place or starting a new job, you go into it with this like really idealized picture of what it's going to be. Like for me, it was, oh man, I'll have this huge chunk of time. I'm going to get so much more done. I'm going to wander around the park sketching. I'm going to have this carefree artist lifestyle. The reality is, yeah, there's some days that feels like that, and it's awesome. But for the most part, it just becomes your routine again. You kind of go back to that baseline level of happiness, I guess. And so now it feels like routine, and now it feels like work. But yeah, I'm still trying to savor those moments of freedom, or moments of kind of open-ended play that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we I think maybe wrongly, as a culture, we sort of romanticize the artist, the life of the artist, and what that looks like. And I've talked to other artists on the show, and I, talking about sort of the ideas behind the starving artist, things like that. But I feel like in a way it's kind of nice to hold on to the idea of like a romanticized version of a thing, because for me, like when I'm doing a thing that brings me joy and is a passion of mine, right? So like, for example, I'm working on a new project that I'm, releasing in early next year, and it's very like it's taking up all of my time, and I'm very passionate about it, but like I don't want it to become a thing that's just a routine. I don't want it to become a thing that's like just paying the bills or something. Although, of course, those are the unintended consequences of making something a success. But I still like want to hold on to the romantic joy of just doing this thing that just fills my heart. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I had in the midst of it, my Tuesdays and Thursdays doing art, feeling like that, just the normal job. I had a moment where I was cutting up paper, construction paper, and using glue sticks that I stole from my kids, and making these drawings of icebergs out of construction paper and glue sticks. I'm thinking, man, this is exactly what I was doing when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and now I'm doing it for like a book, and and as a job. This is amazing. So there are those moments of joy in the process that filter through.
That makes sense. I like that. And have you found that, because like doing incidental comics, that's really all on you. That's like you sort of doing your thing. You're in your own head. You're creating for you're creating for the community, but you're also creating for yourself. Like now with creating picture books and things like that, you're sort of calling to a higher power in a sense, right? You're beholden to a big company. How is that hard? Is that difficult?
In some ways, it's easier because when I wake up on a Monday morning and I've just posted my last week comic and I don't have anything new, my first thought is, oh man, if I don't sit down and do this, no one's gonna make me do it. No one's gonna notice it. I could just not do one this week and it'd be fine. The world's not gonna stop. Yeah, maybe one or two of the regular people who read it would notice, but they're probably not going to comment anything or send me an email about it. So I almost feel this like internal stress of of trying to make that new thing when it's so unstructured. With a picture book or any kind of book, it's a team effort. So yeah, you have people who are counting on you, and yeah, there's a little bit of money from the publisher behind it, but it's also the positive aspects of teamwork. So once you get done with your part, it goes on to another person who does their part, and you can kind of build on each other's work. So you're definitely not alone. A lone creator. You're part of a bigger group, and if something that you do is not up to par, they're going to let you know. If something's going great, you're going to get a lot of feedback and encouragement. So it's been really cool to see how the team aspect of that works, and it's much different from the solo process of how I create my webcomics.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you hear the like having sometimes constraints or like having that sort of structure can sometimes open up, your brain into different areas, right, that you hadn't accessed before. Has that been the case for, like What Color is Night or other picture books you're working on?
Yeah, it definitely was for the follow-up book to What Color is Night called What Sound is Morning, which it doesn't come out till May, but it's already completed in the process of being printed, I believe. So once the book What Color is Night was done, we knew we had this companion book to go with it. So that was really neat to see, okay, it's going to be about this many pages. I'm going to use this art style. I'm going to use this kind of poetic way of telling the story. And so I had to take a pretty broad idea but fit into this very, very narrow box. And I think the result was really cool. When I was first given the idea by my editor, my first thought was, man, like how on earth am I going to do this? It's almost too defined, but like you were saying, the constraints really opened up some interesting possibilities in that project, especially.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you fare with stress? Like, are you someone who deals with anxiety? What's going on there in your head?
I'm generally a pretty low stress individual, even when maybe I should be more stressed about the situation. But I do. I mentioned, kind of struggling with burnout a lot. I feel like it's a yearly or bi-yearly thing where I'll just commit to too much or get too much on my plate, and then that definitely results in negative reactions in my personal life and my day job, and a lot of it comes down to frustration at the drawing table spilling over to other parts of my life. So in that sense, yeah, stress is a thing. The other thing that kind of creates stress with my job is just setting boundaries between, working at home. Okay, this is when I need to be at the drawing table. This is when I need to be with the family eating dinner. And that's been one of the big adjustments for my new schedule is where are those boundaries? How do I set them and how do I follow them?
Yeah, boundaries are huge. Now,
I sometimes feel like I pass my stress on to my wife and my kids and the people around me rather than internalize.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you having conversations with your wife about like your schedule, your new schedule, the boundaries, all that stuff? Are you having those conversations?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, we have a 1 and a 3-year-old at home. Our 2 older kids are in school. So there's always a need. Last week I did something that probably wasn't the most efficient way of handling it, but my studio space is in kind of like a sunroom by a living room, basically. So I took the couch from the living room and I literally propped it in the doorway to my studio to make sure the 1-year-old couldn't get in. So instead of him, toddling in and pulling things off my table and opening the cabinets, he just kind of sat there at the side of the couch, like yelling.
There you go. That's a
So
literal
like,
boundary.
yeah, it helped my stress, but probably increased the stress of my wife, Kayla, who, now had to deal with this 1-year-old desperate to get into another room.
Right. So, Grant, we don't know each other super well, but we've been connected online for a while now, for years, and I get the sense from you that you are a very grounded, sort of calm, person. I mean, look at your life. You work as an orthodontist. You are an author. You're an illustrator. You have 4 children, bongers. Where do you think that you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I have this perception of you that you're sort of grounded and centered and low stress. Like, where do you think that comes from? Is it just an innate thing? Is that how it went, as a kid?
Maybe so. I mean, coming from a fairly stable, family background where I was always supported in everything I did. I mean, that's a big part of it. Just having and kind of the privilege of low life stress of things going on, which allows me to spend a lot of time in my own head.
Right.
I feel like if there were a lot of other pressures, whether family things happening or financial issues, I mean, I think I'd have a hard time, just being alone with my thoughts in my sketchbook. I don't know if that's true, but I do think I've had a privilege of being, part of a supportive family, and that's been amazing to have. Especially, we moved back to Wichita, Kansas, about 5 years ago, where my in-laws and my parents live, and just having them around for when we need a babysitter or want to go outside the house and do something. I mean, we can call them up and get away from the 4 crazy young people we live with.
That's amazing. I mean, a supportive family is it's everything. Like, I talk a lot about like safety on this show, like having safe spaces to just be ourselves. Like, that is so huge, especially for a child's development, and feeling safe enough to express themselves and figure out what that means, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that the type of space you're trying to foster as a dad?
Trying, absolutely. Succeeding, who knows?
Not always. Can't be perfect.
No, I mean, it's one thing I've as a dad I've been trying to do is, as much as I want that, like I said, that drawing space of mine to be off limits, I've tried to let my older kids come in and steal my colored pencils and scribble on my art table and basically make a mess, which is tough for me to do, saying, okay, I'm going to be cleaning that up because I have to get to work the next day. But just giving them that space and that freedom and flexibility to mess around and experiment with their thoughts and their ideas, and not stand over their shoulder and say, oh, that's pretty good, or that's not very good. Just giving them the open time to create, I think, is one of my goals as a parent.
I love that. And it sounds like it may be, at least initially, it was a little bit hard for you. Like, can you help me unpack that a little bit? Is it a control thing? Is it a, you being a sort of discerning artist thing? What's going on there?
I think it stems from a complicated relationship with art supplies. So,
okay.
No, I mean, that's a very shallow interpretation of it. But so I have my special art pens, which I don't want them touching. I have these, this good paper that I don't want them scribbling on. And then I have these Prismacolor pencils, which I don't use that much, but I use them for sketchbooks. So I made it so that, okay, you guys can't touch these pens. I use these day in, day out for my comics. This paper I'm using too a lot. It's off limits. These nice pencils, even though, it costs, I don't know, 50 or 70 bucks for a new set, go for it. Go, put them in the pencil sharpener, grind them down to a nub, use them to like bonk on the table and break the lead every time. I'm going to let that part go at least. Cause I tell myself, obviously I can just, buy a new set of pencils and it's no big deal.
Right.
I don't need to make my kids draw with the the crummy Crayola crayons or rose art pencils, or
Sure,
I can
sure.
I can relax a little bit. But as far as any deeper thing, I haven't reflected on that too much.
Yeah, no worries. I was just curious. I think what you're doing sounds great. Like you're creating, because I remember when I was a kid, and maybe you can relate to this. Like, when a parent gives like the ultimatum of like, you can't do this, and the other option is nothing, right? Like you're not
Right.
like giving any other option. Like as a kid, like that is like the most compelling thing, and you're gonna probably find a way to do that thing, So giving
Okay.
them a little out and a little compromise, right? Like I think
Right. Yeah,
is healthy.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I definitely struggle with that in other ways. I mean, it's so easy to put your foot down and say, you will not do this, but that's a good way to foster rebellion for sure.
Yeah. When you were growing up, when did the creativity get into your sort of brain, and when did you start sort of dabbling in art?
My twin brother and I were basically very artistic, I think, from a young age. My aunt and uncle still have these drawings we did when we were maybe 3 or 4, and they're these really intricate scenes of pirates and ninjas and robots and underwater creatures. I mean, just these crazy scenes of action, and we made up stories to go with them and stuff. And looking back, I'm just impressed by the level of detail and stuff and creativity in them. So we were always encouraged because we always had a little bit of a knack for it. And then obviously, hearing praise from classmates and teachers and parents and relatives, you want to continue to build on that. So plus we had that twin competitive streak. We were both trying to do a little bit better than the other person. And that's been a fun dynamic even up through our adulthood. When I do a drawing, I'll show it to Gavin and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" He'll tell me, "Okay, change this, or this is good, or this is not good." And I don't do the same thing for him quite as much because he's nicer, but um, but we've been good sounding boards for each other from age 3 up to age 34.
Wow, that's amazing. And is Gavin still? Is he still making art himself?
Absolutely, yeah. He has a day job as well as an architect in New York, and he on the side 2 days a week, similar to what I do with my orthodontics, does freelance illustration and design. So he'll do murals. He has an Instagram account, Gavin to Draw, where he um, does live drawing of buildings and posts them, in his sketchbook, and has a pretty good following there. So our artistic paths took a little bit different route, but definitely it's something that's super valuable to both of us and a big part of our lives.
That's amazing. So, Grant, do you have aspirations of eventually ditching the orthodontist job as a whole?
I think it's a year by year or decade by decade evaluation. So not anytime soon for sure. I love doing the work with braces, and it definitely gets me outside of my head and into the community, and makes me a responsible member of society. But I think the big thing for me, no matter what point I am in my career, will be finding that balance.
Right.
And whether that balance is doing this halftime, doing the orthodontics halftime, or changing that balance a little bit more, I think will depend on where I am in my book and my drawing work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no 5 or 10 year plan, if that's what you're asking.
Who does?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, if you set one, that's a sure bet that it's not going to go according to plan. You're going to be surprised in one way or another.
100%. Yeah. I think it's really hard to plan that far ahead in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to do my own kids' braces. So that's,
Well, there you go.
12, 15 years away. So I do have that natural boundary built in, basically.
So this is maybe a little tangent, but like on the braces front, so I didn't have braces, but I think my sister did, and one of my brothers had braces and like a headset.
Oh, the headgear, yeah.
The headgear, yeah. Is it like a sort of inevitability that kids nowadays like eventually will have braces?
So what I tell most parents is, only a handful of patients I see each week actually need braces. Have a tooth that's not going to come in otherwise, or have some major bite or alignment issue. So for a lot of people, it's kind of an elective thing, but due to society expectations of having a nice smile, due to kids seeing other friends at school and wanting, hey, I want braces and colors and stuff too. I think there's definitely a lot of push towards doing them, even if you don't have any of those major problems.
Interesting.
And yeah, I think for most people, it's such a big, um, I guess, confidence builder when you see the straight smile afterwards. It's certainly worth it. And I never try to like talk somebody into braces who doesn't want them, but at the same time, I do try to make people see, hey, it can be a big benefit if that's where you want to go.
So, like, I think where my mind went initially, and I think it's probably unfair, is like the word vanity. But I think it's, to your point, maybe it's more about fitting in and community and like feeling confident in yourself.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I think um, the vanity aspect of it probably doesn't come into play too much with teenagers.
Sure.
I think they just want to they just want to be accepted and want to be,
that's all we ever want, Grant.
Yeah.
Is to feel like we belong.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you have braces as a kid?
I didn't. So I didn't have them until I was in dental school.
Oh.
And so I did braces in dental school and Invisalign a couple years later because, my retainer broke like a bad patient. And so I kind of got to experience it as I was going through the process of learning how to do it myself.
Is there any crossover between like your two worlds, your art world and your orthodontist world? Like, do you have like, Gavin Snider art on your walls at your orthodontist office, or is there any crossover ever?
A little bit. I mean, there's a few places in the office where we have, small prints of my work, and that was just because the one of our office managers thought that'd be cool, and I agreed to it. I wasn't like say, oh, let's put my art up on the walls.
Sure.
One of the funniest things that happened was last week. I had gone to an elementary school to do a book reading of my new kids book, What Color is Night? And it was a first or second grader who saw it, and I signed his book afterwards and took a picture with him. And the next week, his mom brought him into the orthodontist and was so excited and brought the book in and brought the picture of me and this kid. And, I saw him for an orthodontic consultation, and I think the mom was just super stoked about it. The kid seemed a little bit embarrassed, but that was a cool like way to see those two worlds collide, which very rarely ever happens.
Wow. That's really neat and really sweet. It's also like got me thinking like it's almost like you have, well, I guess that, when my initial thought was like you have like a built-in reader base as an orthodontist, but like but maybe that's unfair, and most kids who read picture books are 3 to 5, and probably 3 to 5 year olds are not getting braces, question mark.
I rarely see people under the age of 7.
Yeah.
And when I do, say like come back in 2 years basically.
Sure.
And yeah, I do. This is maybe one of my not anxieties, but I don't know. I try to keep them very separate just because I find it weird when those paths do cross. I mean, that story I told you was pretty cool, but I've almost like deliberately put a wall between them, and I don't know if that's for better or worse, but that's the way I've treated it.
Yeah. Interesting. And I think I get it. I think that, yeah, there's something about it that makes sense to me. I can't pinpoint why, but I think it makes sense. I think that makes sense. So one of the like things I love about your art and in particular, like the work you've been doing on incidental comics, is a lot of it is about, or the pieces that really resonate with me, are about like sitting with our thoughts and sitting and being still in our heads, right? And that's, for me, that's a lot about what like self-actualization is about. That's what like mental health is about. It's really about like sitting with our feelings, sitting with our thoughts, being present in our bodies. For yourself, like that sort of idea, like sitting with our thoughts, sitting with our bodies, like how often are you doing that for yourself? Is that something that you're doing as an artist, as a person?
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed about my comics over the years, they reflect really whatever I'm thinking a lot about that at the moment. And one interest of mine in the last few years has been to use kind of I guess, a trite term now, mindfulness. Or I guess not a trite term, but I think it's a little overused. But basically, I feel with the distractions of my day to day, with always being on email, always having my phone with me, it's really drawn me away from the comfort of sitting at the drawing table alone with my thoughts, working on a new idea. I'm trying to think back, like pre-smartphone, when I was so attached to the internet, when maybe before I had Twitter, was it easier for me to create? I don't know. But I've tried to carve out places in my day-to-day routine where I can have that time alone with my thoughts, and usually with a sketchbook and a pen or pencil. And my experience is, when I'm able to do that, when I'm able to have alone time with my sketchbook, eventually find themselves, turned into a comic, because that's when I have some of my deepest insights or reflective moments. But it's certainly not easy to find them.
Yeah. What helps you get there? Because like I know, like maybe for the listeners who are listening to this and feel like they want to maybe carve out some of that time, and whether it's to just be mindful and sit with their thoughts, or to doodle or whatever, like, do you have any tips on sort of finding those spaces?
For me, lunch breaks are a big one. So over, from noon to 1 when I'm at my day job, I try to not every day have an errand to run. I try to set aside some time to do basically nothing. So I'll go to a park if it's a nice day out, and wander around, and get lost in a little trail that goes off the main path. Or if it's colder out, I'll go to the library and just sit with my sketchbook, or read a book or something. And so, yes, clearing your schedule, making an intentional time to be like, hey, I'm going to leave my phone in the car. I'm not going to, go to the grocery store or get gas, or take care of something I need to get done. I'm just going to walk around and be alone with my thoughts. When I schedule it, it's always fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like, you use the word, it's like a privileged place to be. And I think you're right, but that's just a recognition. That's not necessarily a negative. It's also a magical place to be. And I think, now with technology, with Twitter, with I think this idea of, especially in American culture, that we're kind of so obsessed with busyness, right? And productivity and these things that we just get obsessed with. And then we're sort of busying ourselves over things that don't matter. And I think there is a lot of creativity and mindfulness and just creation and joy that can stem from really taking the time to remove those distractions and just sit with our thoughts, right? And really creating that time is, I think, super beneficial for our mental health.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is, too much of that time can also be a detriment. So my experience, and I've kind of told this story on my Incidental Comics blog before, but my experience of trying to write this picture book, I thought I needed like an unlimited amount of that reflective time, and found myself on this artist residency, alone in a cabin in the woods for a week. And that was way too much of mindful time for me.
Interesting.
I think it's...
What did that feel like? Like, was it uncomfortable?
Absolutely. And that might be more just my inability to, to ever be a monk, I guess, but, um, or my lack of preparation for the time.
Hmm.
But instead of this, this great and powerful thing, it was more like a crippling thing of there's way too much time. I don't know what I should be focusing on. Yeah, I want to be a little bit productive, but not too much, but I don't know where to find that balance. So for me, I mentioned getting into the routine of not being on a holiday at the beginning. If I'm able to sprinkle those moments into my routine, it's a lot more valuable than having just constant uninterrupted hours of time. Luckily, my schedule rarely ever allows for those, more than one interrupted hour at a time anyway. But just having the 30 minutes to an hour here and there, I think can be even more powerful than huge chunks of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And it goes back a little bit to what we were talking about before about having a little bit of having those constraints, having a little bit of structure, and that sort of feedback loop can get us out of our heads a little bit. Because I think you're right. I think while those spaces are important for self-actualization and growth, I think we can also get way too wrapped up in our heads and just get overwhelmed with it. Like, I know I've been there before. So, you being a dad of 4 children now, which is bonkers to me, and I don't know how on earth you find time to do anything, let alone like have 2 jobs, you maniac. What have you learned about yourself, in being a father? Like what are some even self-care practices you've learned through sort of like being a father and balancing time with your kids and yourself?
I feel like it's a constant learning process. I mean, parenting for me has been like, it's an amazing experience. It's rewarding in every way I thought it would be, but it also like really exposes how bad of a person you are in certain ways. Like, um, you know, uh, I'll tell my kids don't do this, and then I'll go do something similar, or like, um, basically just.
Can you give me an example that you're not telling your kids like, don't murder, and then you go off and murder? Like, can you give me an example?
Well, let me think about that.
Because you're right. Like and I'll let you think on that for a second. Like it is like, again, I'm not a parent, but I have most of my friends are parents, and they talk about this. They talk about this being like the struggle with being a great role model, right? And I think there's a trap there too. I think like sometimes maybe we need, our culture like needs parents to be these perfect creatures, but the fact remains is that like we're fallible. And how do you relay that to your kids in a way that's like helpful and informative and allows them to feel like that they can screw up too? It's hard.
Luckily, they're well aware of their parents' own infallibility.
Nice.
I'm sorry, fallibility, not infallibility.
Yeah.
An example I thought of was, so basically just yelling at your kid to be quiet. I mean, and I find myself doing this constantly. Like, would you guys please keep it down? And I'm yelling at the top of my lungs, or don't hit your brother. And then what's the consequence for hitting your brother? Oh, well, that's a spanking. I mean, stuff like that. It's obviously completely reverse of what I'm trying to tell them and teach them. Yet you find yourself doing it constantly as a parent. And those are, it's not all super negative examples like that. I mean, there's more minor things, but just realizing that your every move and action and word is being scrutinized, whether you want it to be or not. And they're learning from you at all time. That's kind of it's a powerful thing, but it's also kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's got to be very, I mean, you're probably building up quite the humility as a dad, right? I mean, because it's your infallibility is constantly on display and being tested.
Right.
Yeah.
I think everyone has a different, before being a parent, has a different idea of what kind of parent they will be, and when they get in it, they're like, oh, so this is how I'm really going to be.
Mm.
And not to say that's a bad thing or anything, but it's another example of the expectations of something versus reality of something.
Right. And a lot of times that, like, what helps with that, whether it's parenting or anything, expectations versus reality is about trying to be present, right? Is that something that you work on?
Yeah, so I've tried to keep my phone in the car. So when I get home from work, keep my phone in the car before until they're in bed. So that's it's a fairly short time. I mean, it's a couple hours, but that's a time when I'm not going to be looking at Instagram or thinking about who I need to email. And so I try to set that boundary. I don't always do it, but I have the intention to, and just have, that time when I'm home of like a uninterrupted focus on, on them and on eating dinner and cleaning the kitchen or whatever else needs to be done too.
Yeah.
One thing my wife has been doing lately, and I think it's been a really positive thing, is having just 10 minutes of time, of individual time with each child. So with a big family, I mean, sometimes the one-on-one time gets lost in the mix. So if she can spend, and I do this too a lot, spend 10 minutes with one kid doing what they want to do, that's a short time, but that's really valuable because you get a really different side from them than when they're interacting with their siblings or trying to, vie for attention with 3 other kids. And their personality opens up, and
that's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's been really valuable.
That's really great. I love that. So you have this picture book, What Color is Night, which I just purchased a copy of for one of my nephews.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I haven't read it yet, but I one of the things, Grant, I love about picture books, and maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just like me being who I am and just seeing what I want to see in things. But for me, I love the picture book as a medium because I think there is a lot of opportunity for empathy, for showing children how we can be empathetic creatures. Do you feel that in picture book genre?
Yeah. One quote I love is by Mo Willems, who's basically the Dr. Seuss of our time. I feel like the most
he's great,
renowned and hilarious picture book author out there. And he said that drawing is, I'm going to mess up the quote anyway. Drawing is visualized empathy. So whenever he draws a character, or any, artist draws a character, whether it's cartooning or picture book making, when you read that and see the characters speaking and interacting with what's going on in the story, you're basically placing yourself into the heart and mind of that character. And so you're kind of living the story with them as it's being read to you or you're reading it. And that's just something as humans that we do. And when I heard that quote, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That explains why we can be so attached to, like, just a pigeon, trying to drive a bus or pretty silly character on face value, but we invest that character with our emotions and feelings and our life history, and that makes a story even more powerful.
I love that. I love Mo Willems. So when you're creating like your characters, you're thinking about the audience. You're thinking about, like, okay, like, how is this reader going to be connecting to this character?
I don't know that I actively think about that, but hopefully that comes out. This first picture book I drew, it's not character driven at all. I have another one that's in the works or mostly finished that's very character based. I think meets that a little bit, but I feel like in my comics, whenever I draw the frustrated writer at the drawing table or the guy wandering around on his lunch break looking at nature, I'm certainly hoping to capture some of that empathy from the audience.
Yeah. So with What Color is Night, your new picture book, available now, everyone.
Shameless plug.
Not shameless. Without shame. No, I guess that is shameless. I have no shame. Yes, I'm happily doing shameless plugs. That's what I'm trying to say. With What Color is Night, what are you trying to evoke? Like, what do you want to evoke in the reader?
Basically, putting the reader there in these various scenes that happen at night, and just seeing the beauty or the interest in the natural landscape or the cityscape of nighttime, and really hopefully giving them a feeling that they're there watching this thing. Um, it kind of came from direct observation from a lot of walking around my neighborhood, sketching at nighttime, or memories of things I'd seen with nighttime scenes, and trying to connect that to various colors to make it a bigger picture.
So is it about like being observant of our natural world, being observant and looking closer and sort of finding things that we may not see if we're not looking, if we're not sort of opening our hearts to those things?
Yeah, I think that's a great description. Even maybe the third line in the book is "Look closer," and similarly, the "What Sound Is Morning" book, which comes out soon, will be it's listen. So look closer and listen. I feel like those two commands are basically the summaries of what those two books are about.
I love that. And I think looking closer and listening are integral to empathy, really. Like empathy is about, right, meeting people where they are, seeing them for who they are, relating to them in a way, and without listening, actively listening to someone or listening to a situation or really sort of paying attention, looking closer, we're not, I think, really able to empathize in the way that we can if we're actually looking closer or listening actively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that extends too to empathy for not just other humans, but to like the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
Another big interest of mine when I was a young kid was environmentalism. So I would find a contest and write an essay about saving the rainforest or the whales or something like that. And I had this passion and this idealism for, for conservation and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I often wonder, like, why don't I still have that same drive and that same, burning passion to help those causes and do those things. I think the first step maybe is the looking closer and listening and noticing, these other life forms around you and their needs as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just it's still there. It's just like, it's still there in you. It's just it's just a bit more complex now. It's a bit more nuanced. Yeah. You're sort of channeling that into the messages in your art.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So are there any, when you were creating these two picture books at What Color's Night and then the new one coming out in May, what were your inspirations? What sort of things did you look at as inspirations? That kind of thing.
So I've always been drawn to, well, I mean, just picture books as a form. So looking at some of my favorite books and, seeing how the artists made their images and stuff, and that, and basically having the constraint of trying to make most every image in the book something I had seen or witnessed or put down in my sketchbooks. So one thing that's really fun for me is to start a new project and just sort through old sketchbooks from, going back a decade or more now, and seeing, okay, what was I doing at this time? What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was on my mind then? And seeing how my perceptions and perspective have changed, and how I can take that, little bit of information from the past and bring it into a new project.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much, I love that you can. I mean, I sort of envy artists in a way, because I think there's a lot of like a tangible way to interpret like this thing that we all humans should do is just looking closer and taking in our surroundings, right? And you have like this gift of like putting that into this medium of art, right? But I think as a whole, you know, as we've been talking about, like I think there's so much value in just being cognizant of what's going on around us and taking that in and thinking and sort of ruminating on like, okay, how are we connected to this? How is my role in this, i.e. the environment or this city or our culture? Like how am I playing a role in impacting these things?
Yeah, and it's really hard to make those connections in the moment too. So like it's only after you, or at least for me, it's only after I put them onto paper, close the notebook, set it on a shelf for months and months that I can go back and see it's okay. This is how I relate to this experience or relate to this scene I observed. This is how I can connect it to something bigger.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a form of time travel where you can go back and see maybe with greater clarity what you had experienced at a time in the past.
Oh, I love that. So the new picture book, What Color is Night, is available now. The second one, which is called what again?
What Sound is Morning.
What Sound is Morning. That's out in May. How are you doing any like a book tour or anything like that?
Not specifically for the picture books, but for my next comics collection called I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf. I still love that title.
Nice. It's great.
I think I'll be doing a Midwest tour sometime in early May for that book.
Okay. Midwest only. No California?
Hey, talk to your local bookseller and I'll happily fly out there.
All right.
No, I for now it's Midwest, which is, should allow me to see some new cities I've never been to and still not have a huge amount of time away from my family and my day job. But
right.
It's kind of starting small with this one, but I'm really excited for it.
That's awesome. And I know What Color is Night is fairly new. But how's it been received? How is it selling? Are you sort of clued into that stuff?
No, I mean, there've been some nice reviews, which is always cool to see that, hey, somebody else read the book and took the time to write about it. The coolest thing for me has just been among the community. So we had a book launch at my local bookstore, Watermark Books in Wichita, Kansas. And Kayla had basically rallied our friends and relatives and acquaintances. And there was like a packed house of, 75 to 80% of the people we knew from someplace. But
that's amazing.
Just this huge outpouring of support from, people I see weekly or monthly. And that's been neat to do something that can be, that they can read my friends can read to their kids before bed at night or, give to relatives for Christmas. I mean, and that's one thing I didn't expect with this book. Just that more personal aspect of it has been really cool.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love that. All right. Well, we'll plug your things in a moment here, but we always sort of start ending the show, wrapping up the show with a segment called Empathy Heroes. So this is the part of the show, listeners, where my guests and I each mention an empathy hero in our lives, someone who is very empathetic, could be even a character from a book or a movie, or a quote we love from a favorite author. I will go first with my empathy hero to give Grant a moment to think on his. My empathy hero this week is the author Ellen Forney. She's a cartoonist and author. She wrote the book Marbles. It's a graphic memoir about her dealing with bipolar disorder. And then she has a newer book called Rocksteady. And I got to meet her recently in person. A couple weeks ago, as of this recording, I drove up to LA and spent a couple hours at this old sanitarium in the Glendale area. And I got to meet Ellen's mom, and then we went back to Ellen's mom's house in LA, and we were going to record, and one of my mics wasn't working, so we didn't record. But all of that to say, I got to spend a few hours with this person I had never met before, just sort of been an admirer of her work, and it was lovely, and we really connected, and she is just really doing great work in sort of allowing others into her own story and meeting them halfway. And she's a very talented artist and just a good, empathetic human. So Ellen Forney is my empathy hero this week. How about you, Grant?
Well, I just want to say I loved her book Marbles, and then
Yes.
did she do the illustrations for the Sherman Alexie
Yes,
book?
she did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's an artistic hero of mine and an empathy hero of yours. That's great.
Yeah, no, she's the absolute true story of a part-time Indian.
Yes, yeah.
I love that book. It's amazing.
That was a great book, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Empathy hero for you?
Sorry, I'm still thinking.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It could be, you don't have to narrow it down to one person either. Could be one of your favorite, it could be Mo Willems. Could be...
Okay, I'll do one better. So I think when you look at Mo Willems' artwork, you can see the facial expressions of his characters, which is obviously how and their poses, how he conveys empathy. But if you look at their eyes, do you know who he models the facial expression of his characters? What artist he's referencing quite a bit?
Interesting. I do not know. Please tell.
So Charles Schultz and Peanuts.
Oh.
Basically just like the Elephant and Piggy books. If you see like the worried look on Elephant's face, like that's a pure Charlie Brown expression.
Oh.
And you can, definitely, I'd say the majority of cartoonists after Charles Schultz were influenced by him in some way. So that's not like a unique thing to Mo Willems, but that's just how it reminded me of him. But basically just the experience of reading Peanuts as an adult. I read it as a kid, but had no idea what was going on. And I'd seen Snoopy advertise too many MetLife commercials and, flying the Macy's parade and stuff. So I didn't have any personal connection to Peanuts until about, I would say a couple years ago. I started checking out the collections from the library, and I just really got into especially 60s, 70s era Peanuts. Just seeing the world through how Charles Schultz did, and in the eyes of these really simplified graphic characters, but that are all reflections of his personality in some way. Another reason I'm thinking about him is I'm trying to show my kids Charlie Brown Christmas and Great Pumpkin every holiday.
Oh, those are great.
And the downside is they start calling each other things like blockhead and stuff, but just sharing the experience of watching those shows and hopefully reading the comics someday has been cool. So my empathy hero for the Christmas season is Charles Schultz.
That's an amazing one, and one that hasn't been mentioned yet. So I love that. I love that a lot. Peanuts are one of those comics, like a Calvin and Hobbes or something. Like it's something that is so accessible to kids. Like kids can get a lot out of it, but adults too. Like there's so much there. It's so deep,
Yeah, the amazing thing is, if you read through it, he's obviously writing for himself above all else. Like he's replaying things in his childhood or even things in his adulthood and filtering them through these characters.
Right.
And somehow made a hugely commercially successful strip out of it. That's kind of the miracle of it all, that he was able to distillize all his experience and anxiety into, something that every single person can read.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Grant, where can You Me Empathy listeners connect with you, order your book, What Color is Night, and all that loveliness?
On the social media, Incidental Comics is my Facebook page and website, incidentalcomics.com. And then on Twitter and Instagram, it's @GrantDraws. And those are places to see, basically my weekly comic posts, as well as a lot of announcements when I have a new book out, and sharing some process stuff from those. What Color is Night? You can get that wherever you get your books. Go to your local bookstore and ask for it if they don't have it. Definitely support your local bookstore, especially around the holidays. Yeah, and there will be a few more books out next year, which I'm excited to, share with the world in 2020.
Awesome. And you have, I know that people can buy your art on Incidental Comics, buy prints of your art. I know I have done that. And then you also have The Shape of Ideas, which is a book I love and have as well.
Yeah, and The Shape of Ideas is now a couple years old, but I feel like still a great reflection of my creative process and something I'm really proud of. And then I do have prints of basically any drawing I've ever done from Incidental Comics that I mail out to all over the world. So it's always cool when somebody thinks highly enough of something I've drawn to, tack it up on their wall or use it for decoration in the bathroom or wherever. That's always super flattering still.
Yeah. Well, listeners, go to incidentalcomics.com. All of those links will be in the show notes. I personally have the Stray Books comic framed on my wall, one of Grant's amazing comics. So go check it out. Go order What Color is Night for your kids, for your nephews and nieces. It's support our local artists and authors. Grant, thank you so much for being a guest on You Me Empathy. Oh, so I'll probably mention this in the show notes, but I just wanted to mention it here. Listeners, if you're not aware, Grant, of course, was the artist behind the logo for You Me Empathy, as well as my old podcast, Joy Sandwich. So if you're into that art, if you like the logo for You Me Empathy, you're going to love all of his stuff, which is kind of fun. Anyways, Grant, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thanks so much, Nona, and thanks for letting me draw your logo. That was a really fun project.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Like anytime I think of like that need, you pop into my brain. Well, listeners, again, go follow Grant, go buy his books, go read all of the things from him. He's wonderful. And to you, listeners, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring Pale Blue Dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.